opening speech from our President of World Indonesia, Mr. Daniel. The second one will continue by the opening remarks by the Ambassador of Hungary to Indonesia, Her Excellency Judith Pak. And then will be continued by the presentation from our three outstanding speakers, followed by the Q&A session and closed by quiz and photo session.
I would also like to remind you to ensure your electronic devices is switched to silent. So now, without further ado, let us welcome the President of World Bank Indonesia, Mr. Daniel Dopinten. The floor is yours.
Ambassador of Hungary to Developmental Indonesia, Her Excellency Judith Pak, Program Manager and Delegation of the European Union to Indonesia and Darussalam, Mr. Muhammad Febri, Co-founder and Secretary of Emancipate Indonesia, Ms. Amalia Suri, Co-initiator and Spokesperson of Gerakan Muda FCC, Mr. Mardian Surahman, SED, and distinguished guests. It's a great privilege to be able to speak with you today at this event, which is the first ever real-life open discussion that will talk about how we should aware and take lead in tackling the developmental challenge caused by the tobacco industry from multidisciplinary understanding. First of all, my name is Daniel. On behalf of World Bank Indonesia, I would like to welcome all of you in this very morning. World Bank is a global youth platform which is based in the UK and now spread in 150 countries with 15,000 members around the world. Aim to make youth as a change maker and increase their merit in social development. Now we are supporting the SDGs as a tool to collaborate in creating bigger impact on the betterment society. World Bank Indonesia is officially coming to exist in Indonesia 2015, and now we already have 9 local chapters called the American Council. From Palembang, Lampung, Jakarta, Bogor, Bandung, Semarang, and Yogyakarta, Malang, and Surabaya. Each city has their own characteristic and their project aim. Meanwhile, the national board, which coincidentally is also in Jakarta, in contrast to take a lead in leadership. Come with the basis, we are initiating this open discussion with the humble and public partners of us is the Hungarian Embassy in Jakarta. Along with the European Union, they are committed to taking roles to inspire Indonesian youth to take the responsibility for the sustainability for the future generation. Thank you for the utmost support. We also express our gratitude towards our valuable collaboration with Emancipate Indonesia and the Gerakan Muda FCPC as they pioneered on their own age issue. We do believe that youth is the key to change. Therefore, we are so proud to have the Muhaber to talk about the unspoken phenomenon. So, why do we decide to talk about the tobacco industry? When it comes to developmental challenge that affects our daily life, especially to the youth, is smoking. Approximately 50,000 million equals with 34% Indonesian population is a smoker, with the third place of the world total numbers of smokers reported by WHO. More than 30% of Indonesian children reportedly smoke a cigarette before the age of 10, while the future of 80 million of Indonesian children is at stake, as the cigarette producer were internationally aiming children as the future market. Through massive TV advertisement and sponsorships on activities with teenagers involved the most. Not to mention that kretek as one of the tobacco product is somehow embraced as a part of the local culture in the Asian society. When you aware of its impact on the health, it has another unseen side effect. If it's the unknown to the people, surely it will become the precedent for another huge obstacle in the future, which include the climate change and modern slavery footprint in the process. So, basically, we are trying to talk about how supply chain process of the tobacco industry has their own bad effect on the people caused by its phase, from the extraction phase, which related to the land usage and its contribution to the climate change, modern slavery footprint in the production and distribution phase, and finally health impact in its final phase, consumption. To emphasize, when it's already have their own negative effect on the planet, such as climate change, it will take forever to get it recovered. Even it's not possible for us to create immediate change in the human side effects such as modern slavery and health. But once the earth gets affected, it will cause carbon humanity. That's why our open discussion now is also part of the climate diplomacy week of the European Union. And the world did not stay quiet. We all here have a chance to stop this. Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, or abbreviated as FCTC, is initiated to solve this huge challenge from many mentioned aspects. And we are here to know that we, as a youth, can take lead on it. It is a new way to understand how dangerous this is daily phenomenon that some of us are trying to compromise it with it and casually think that we just need to get along with it. But indeed, it is our responsibility to recover, to save our future generation, to tackle this daily problem and to prevent it to become our unsolved global problems. And I'm confident this small informal open discussion will inspire many initiatives to look at the tobacco industry in many very fresh ways. That we will not stop here, but somehow we can create another tool for action to spread the messages to all the Indonesian youth in tackling these developmental challenges. To conclude, I again thank you to the Hungarian Embassy in Jakarta, the European Union, Amasipat Indonesia, as well as Gerakan Budaya FCDC, for their commitment in saving our future generation by sharing what they're thinking about how we can face these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for your speech. Now let's continue by hearing opening remarks from the Ambassador of Hungary to Indonesia. Please welcome Her Excellency Judith Pak.
Thank you so much. Selamat pagi semuanya. I'm very, very happy that so many of you came here today to our embassy, and I'm really very happy to host this event today together with World Merit and also with the other organization, and especially also as country of the EU, with the EU together as part of the EU Climate Diplomacy Week. I need to tell you that when I met World Merit and Perienda for the first time, I was very taken by the idea that young people want to raise the awareness of the population about the SDG. Because sustainable development goals are very, very important. And these are these kinds of things, especially also similar to climate change, which are sometimes very hard to grasp. Like, okay, what does that mean, climate, sustainable development? It sometimes reaches so far, but when we think of it, it usually starts in our very own life with our very own motives and everyday things, what we do, what we eat, how we behave, and if we smoke or not. And sometimes we tend to think that this only affects our own self, this is only our own health, this is only our own thing. It's our private decision if we do it or not. And of course it's always our private decision, but you need to see that it's action and reaction. It also affects everything around us. And I believe smoking and the tobacco industry is something where we definitely need to raise our awareness, that we have the big picture. Because sometimes, of course, everyone knows that smoking is harmful for your health, but do you really know how much? Do you really know how bad it is? And not only for yourself, but do you really know what the industry inflicts? What it is, how it affects our climate? We were just discussing it right now. Climate is always an issue. Yes, everyone knows about the greenhouse emission gases. They are bad, but do you really know in what everything they are there? How you are contributing to an industry, to a field which is damaging our environment, our climate, and our climate is the air that we breathe in. If this we don't keep safe, then we will not be there, and our children will not have a place to live. And if you just go out right now to Jakarta traffic, you already recognize you cannot breathe. It's complicated, it's getting worse and worse. Our food is losing the nutrition, and these are the things which we need to take care about, which we at least need to raise our awareness. And tobacco is definitely there. Smoking, we heard the numbers, they are really very, very high. And we need to be aware of this. And why I was especially happy to have this event today is because the Hungarian government is very much dedicated to lower the numbers of smokers in Hungary. And we did a lot of things. And let me just tell you the main measures which we had in terms of decreasing the number of smokers and to decrease this industry a bit, or to make it a little bit more sustainable at least, is that first of all, the first action of our government since 2010, we started this program very effectively, was that we started monitoring the numbers of smokers and their daily habits, that we can see more like who are the smokers, why are they doing it, what are the effects, especially in cooperation with health institutions. Then, as a second, we introduced smoke-free policies. Right now, in a lot of places in Europe, when you are going to a place or a restaurant or a bar or whatever, you are not allowed to smoke inside. which is a very good thing because also a lot of people were like passive smokers. Even if you are not smoking here in Jakarta, you go to a place, you will definitely get the cigarette smoke into your lungs and everywhere because everyone is smoking. In Europe and in Hungary, we banned it from the public spaces. So in no public space, smoking is allowed, and it's definitely hard in wintertime because you need to go outside into the cold to smoke, which is like definitely decreasing the number of smokers because this is kind of inconvenient. We also have a very good cessation program, which means that in our healthcare system, we put special emphases and special subsidies to programs which are helping to cope with nicotine addiction. So those programs are facilitated and helped by also in groups, but also with special nicotine kind of treatments, and these are the things which are very easy and cheap to get in every pharmacy. Then the other thing is we have health warnings. You also have it here sometimes on the cigarette packages, but these ones which you have here, they are not compared to the European ones. Those are really ugly pictures which you don't look at it, and it's like really, if you have a pack of cigarettes, it doesn't look good. You rather not look at it. And this is also something which is, it's not trendy anymore. If you go somewhere and you put your pack of cigarettes onto the table, then everyone's just like, put it away. Because it's really not good to look at it. And that also comes along that Hungary banned all advertising of the tobacco companies. Nowhere will you find TV ads or any kind of advertisement of them. The tobacco companies in Hungary are only allowed to do some CSR events, nothing else. Even if they sponsor, they cannot put their logos nowhere, they cannot do any advertisement, nothing compared to what is still here happening, and this was also very, very effective. The other thing is, of course, which was very, very much affecting the consumers, was that we raised the tax. Right now, when you buy a pack of cigarettes, 75% of the price is tax. It's pretty expensive. So it's not affordable anymore, and it's not good to be a smoker. And of course, it's also the restriction of access, because we ban cigarettes from regular stores. You cannot buy tobacco and cigarettes in a regular supermarket or at gas stations or wherever you are going, or in bars or restaurants. You can only buy them in special tobacco shops. And these tobacco shops need to be closed from the front, so you have no insight into the shop. They can do no advertisement. You can only go in if you are over 18 years old, and the shops must be very, very small and very limited. So it's not this easy, nice shopping experience that you look around, chit-chat or whatever, but it's very restricted. You can only go into the certain shop, buy your cigarette, and go outside. And that's it. And they are only in special places. So if you are, I don't know, in the middle of a bar or in a restaurant and you want to smoke but you don't have your cigarette, you need to check where the next store is located, you need to go outside, you need to go to that shop and buy there your cigarettes. This is also, and these things which our government introduced since 2010 decreased the number of smokers very much. We had the youth population, the young smokers, decreased from 35% to 25%. And the old population smoking decreased by 11%, which is like really, really a very, very great number. And we see it also from the health numbers that these were good incentives and these were really good things which we do. So with this, also in 2013, WHO, the World Health Organization, awarded Hungary the No Tobacco Award of the Year, which was a great achievement. And that's why it's very close to our heart to host this event today here at the Hungarian Embassy, and also together with the EU to raise the awareness and also in relation with climate change. So thank you again for being here. I hope we will have a very interesting discussion. All of us will learn a lot. I'm also very, very curious for our other three speakers that I can also broaden and widen my knowledge. And then afterwards, in the field of sustainability, we will have a lovely buffet which is given to you by Greens, of course also by us, which is complete vegan, which is also very good for sustainability, healthy, GMO-free, and still very, very yummy. So make sure that later on you grab some bites. Thank you so much again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency, for the opening remarks. For all our Indonesian friends here, before we start our discussion, whether it's from our World Married Indonesian members or our community members, I would love to say, for your information, Her Excellency Judith Pai is one of the youngest ambassadors in the world, coming from a country that you know as a Rubik inventors country, with a lot of Nobel appreciation. If I'm not mistaken, he's 14 right now. Yeah, and we can also make her as a really good example in pursuing our dreams, because in 22 years old, Her Excellency being a spokesperson to President and also being ambassador in 32 years old. That's a really massive achievement that we should make as a really good example. And we are so proud that Her Excellency support our movement in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in Indonesia. And for all your support, Najan Kosaram Saifen.
Okay, now we're going to have the discussion open. 3 sub-themes will be focused on our discussion. First, the environmental impact of tobacco as development challenge. This sub-theme will discuss about the effect of tobacco for climate change and how society and government overcome the issue. Second, slavery footprints in tobacco supply chains. This sub-theme will speak up about the slavery cases in tobacco industry, especially in Indonesia, from production, distribution, and consumption sites, and how the government and the society can control it. Third and lastly, tobacco industry denormalization through youth participation. This sub-theme will discuss about how we as the youth and millennial generation should overcome the negative impact from tobacco industry for our society and our environment.
So now, without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Mr. Muammar Febri, the Program Manager of the Delegation of the European Union to Indonesia and Brunei Darussalam.
Next, please welcome the one and only Ms. Amel, the co-founder and secretary of Emancipate Indonesia.
Last but not least, let's welcome Mr. Margianta, the coordinator and spokesperson Gerakan Muda FCTC Indonesia. So, first of all, thanks a lot for coming today, Mr. Fabri, Amel, and Margianta. Before we proceed to our first speaker, kindly allow me to announce the regulations of our today's discussion. First of all, the maximum of time of each speaker is 15 minutes. And the second one, we'll open the Q&A session after the third speaker presentation. And then we have the first session, for the 3 questions from our audience. And will be added up in the second session for 3 more questions from our audience. And for all our audience, please bear in mind that questions are delivered in English. So if you guys don't mind use English, or you can use Bahasa Hungary, we have Lino as a translator. All right, so without further ado, let's move to our presentation.
To Mr. Muammar, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would say young people, because in here I see all the young faces. This always excites me anytime that I speak with the young people, because you are the future generations for Indonesia. And you know, what excites me more is that this event is trying to define links between tobaccos and also climate change. I must say that this is quite innovative, yeah, from our point of view, because I don't think a lot of people put emphasis on this clearly. Yeah? But again, I think as the EU, we are very open to reach out into new territories like this. Especially, we believe that tobacco, as per as other large-scale plantations, like palm oil, pulp and paper, they possess the same issues that are facing Indonesia as well. So, first of all, it's a great pleasure for me to be here to represent the EU, speaking on the Climate Week. And then I would like to highlight that the EU has been a long, consistent supporter for Indonesia in its effort to combat the climate change, its impact, and also to mitigate it through our various mechanisms, both at policies and also at practical level. Today I will not, as I said earlier, speak specifically on the impact of the tobacco towards climate change or vice versa, because as you might know, the rise of the temperature might also impacting the yields and production of the tobacco farmers as well. So, but I will focus more on general issues which contribute towards the increase of the emissions out of the massive monoculture plantations. Yeah? So as you all know, as I said earlier, tobacco is also one of the monoculture plantation. So it has a similarity to a certain extent towards other monoculture plantation in these countries. I guess everyone in this room knows that Indonesia holds one of the largest depository in terms of biodiversities, yeah, in the world, after Brazil and Congo. Yeah? But this bless also comes with a price, yeah, due to massive change of land cover for cultivation of large-scale monoculture plantations. These massive and irresponsible transformations of land cover, be that for palm oil, rubber, acacia for coffee, and also tobacco, has contributed significantly towards the amount of emissions released to the atmosphere. Cyclically, from the conversion process of the land cover, production, and also post-production phase. Most of the land use and land use change took place in the forested areas. So why? Because it's the most fertile ground. So that's the logic, yeah? So the biodiversity loss is unprecedented, including the dissipation of the precious rare genetic materials, yeah? For instance. The other element that is impacted is the loss of hydrological function. So you see drought everywhere, you see floods everywhere, because the hydrological functions of our landscape is disturbed due to the change of the land covers. Worse, also the change of the microclimate in somewhere in the region where you see there is no air in the roof within the plantations. Basically, the wind gradient is close to zero. Why is that? Because we might look at the global climate change temperature, but at the end of the day, what we do is impacting our microclimate. It's not only the general macroclimate, but the microclimate itself is impacted. And worse as well is the ecosystem services as pollinations and pest control is gone, yeah, due to void of pollinator agents, such as birds and bees. Birds are gone because usually when we destroy their ecosystems, especially when people like to keep birds in the cage for singings, yeah, okay, it's nice. You wake up every morning, you hear their voice, but at the end of the day, they are the most important agent for pollination. When you destroy their ecosystem, you keep them in the cage, there is no pollinators. The fruits cannot happen because of the loss of the pollinators agents. So, and then also the loss of the natural predators. So the pest control. No wonder that if you have a plantation, you have a major pest issues, yeah? And of course, ultimately the impacts to what the temperature, which is unavoidable, which finally leads to climate change. Again, I would like to highlight that the keyword in here is responsible, massive conversion of land cover, yeah? Which sometimes is done through unlawful process. This is very general. It happens everywhere. It happens in every sectors, and I think it happens as well in tobacco industries. But again, the data here needs to be validated. Yeah. I give one example in other sectors. In the Highland district in Indonesia, which produce top quality coffees, for instance, a prima donna, one might say, because this coffee product that came from this region has been recognized by the EU as the first geographic indication varieties in Indonesia. in any case, the farmers on that districts have encroached, or they have to encroach the protected forest simply to cope with the impact of the climate change. Why? The farmer need to go up to find more suitable temperatures to grow Arabica coffees. So they found it's very hard for them to cope with the change of the climate temperature. And as it gets harder, they even get more higher. Getting more higher means you penetrate the protected areas. The core area whereby, like for instance, the place where the rhinoceros is breeding. Rhinoceros in Sumarna only have like less than 100 more to do that. Yeah? So this is again basically showcase how the irresponsible land use transformation impact our lives significantly, not only for the biodiversity but also for the farmers themselves. Yeah. There are many cases as well that proves scientifically that economic gain from the systematic change of land use does not commensurate towards the impact of economic growth. Yeah. So as seen in 2015, yeah, forest fires. So you might get a lot of benefit in terms of economic gain, but at the end of the day, when the disaster strikes due to the loss of ecosystem services, due to the change of the microclimatic pattern, or due to El Niños, when the peatlands start to burn, the economic loss that was absorbed by Indonesia was staggering, as confirmed by the World Bank report in 2016. Yeah. So again, this puts a lot of question to us. Is it monoculture? Again, be that palm oil plantation, be that tobacco, be that powder, this is solutions. Because we might get a short-term benefit, but in the long run, all we have is, I cannot say disaster, but all we have is a problematic situation. And all of you in here are young people, and you will have to inherit this from us. So you might want to think differently. Think differently how our economy should be. Whether we can use a circular economy or more responsible approach in terms of sustainability and so forth. There should be a better approach to deal with this, both from mitigation and adaptation angles, specifically from agriculture sectors. So, as I said, the implication of climate change for agriculture, including for the tobaccos and coffee sectors, is staggering, because in many cases it has to go through an enclosed forest to cope up with the new climate change. Yeah? This opened a new discussion, yeah? And a new windows, particularly on the angle of the agro-biodiversity. Yeah? What is agro-biodiversity? I mean, people understand about agroforestry, they understand about agriculture, they understand about biodiversity, but what does it mean of agro-biodiversity? Agrobiodiversity is defined as a number of composition of species cultivated and raised by farmers in consideration of an important factor in food production and environmental conservation. So basically what does it mean is that you don't do monocultures. Yeah? You diversify your crops. Because when you diversify, you ensure the good quality of ecosystem services as a whole, and the diversity of the genetic materials and ecosystem balance is ensured. Yeah? We at the EU has put this into test in one of the forest dense provinces in Indonesia to mitigate the systematic change of the land cover and turn into jungle of monoculture plantation, and it works. So there are different approaches. There are different approaches to enhance the livelihood of the farmers without forcing them to become monocultures believers. Yeah. So generally, farms managed by the peasant in Indonesia traditionally considered as containing high level of agrobiodiversity. The decline in agrobiodiversity is mainly consequences of the replacement of the grazing land with croplands, the intensification of agriculture, and the widespread use of transgenic seed, as Her Excellency said today on the, luckily today we have the bird greens, yeah? Which is, I think the food comes from a vegetable that is free from GMOs and so on. So this practice is not inherent in traditional practices. Yeah? So all of us, including my remarks in here, the challenge is to find and to combine or to strike a balance between this traditional wisdom and scientific approach. There should be another ways. Yeah? The scientific approach, the combine of scientific approach and traditional wisdom, as explained in the above, need to ensure that productivity can be ascertained economically for farmers without having gone through a zero-sum game of land conversion for monoculture plantation. So this is a tricky thing because we might have to change our mindsets completely. Yeah? We might have to change mindset completely, but luckily, not only at the field level, at the policy level as well, the Indonesian government has shown a very strong willingness to change, as recently showcased in the recent adoption of the Presidential Instruction number 8, yeah? Which basically instruct the government, the line ministries, the region, and also the district government, as also provincial government, to postpone the issuance of the new permit of palm oil plantations due to growing concern over deforestation and land tenure conflicts. So, I believe the same condition is also applying for different types of crops. So, Indonesia has taken this bold move, and we have to appreciate this firm and systematic move made by the government. But again, it's a work in progress. Yeah, it's a work in progress, whereby all of us, especially you, the young people, need to ascertain a strong monitoring and a strong control to make sure that this unlawful or unallowed or basically unlawful illegal land conversion does not take place. So the focus should target on productivities, not conversions. So we have to limit the investment that basically contribute to the destruction of our forests, like palm oil sector, for instance, and start to invest more in the sector that is more friendly towards the environment. There is a lot of mechanism now in place. Take, for instance, in February 2018, the government of Indonesia introduced this green suku. Green suku is an Islamic bond. An Islamic bond which successfully has raised 1.2 billion US dollar. This is a good way. It's a good way whereby you young people, the next generation, can see that the trajectory of the development has changed. But again, as I say, the monitoring is needed, and then you as a young people, I believe that you need to keep your eyes open, because at the end of the day, the policy is there. Without strong enforcement, without strong monitoring and oversight, we might end up as a country to be trapped in the cycle of this monoculture plantation, which is not very good in terms of environmental sustainability. With that, I would like to close my speech today, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pertwee, for the presentation. Now we'll continue the second speaker, Mrs. Amel. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Her Excellency, Mr. Pertwee, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my presentation, let me introduce myself first. My name is Amalia Suri. I'm from Emancipate Indonesia. We are a youth organization that fights against modern slavery. What we do in Emancipate are research, and then we do campaign, advocacy, and also capacity building for youth to be more aware of this issue and find a way to help tackle the issue of modern slavery. We believe that youth can be a bridge that connect every sector, such as government, academics, NGOs, and also businesses. And today I'm going to talk about slavery footprint in tobacco supply chain. Yeah, before that, if you don't mind, we can watch Emancipate's profile video.
Beberapa bulan sekali. 7 tahun yang lalu saya membeli sebuah kemeja di Belanda. Dengan senang hati saya bawa ke rumah dan saya minta tolong pada ibu saya, "Ma, tolong kencangkan dong kancingnya, ini kayaknya dari pabriknya bener nih." Terus saya nanya ke ibu saya, "Ma, kenapa sih kebanyakan kemeja yang saya beli dari merek ini itu semuanya logam? Memang di pabriknya nggak benar?" Ternyata ibu saya cuma jawab satu aja, "Ya mungkin itu anak-anak yang kerja dari pagi sampai malam di pabriknya, mereka capek, mereka harus kejar setoran, dan akhirnya kancingnya logam." Saya kaget, dan saya menemukan ada fenomena fast fashion, ada sweatshops, ada guru-guru yang bekerja di balik brand-brand yang mewah itu dalam kondisi yang mengkhawatirkan.
Beberapa hari yang lalu, saya mendengar berita mengenai ledakan di sebuah pabrik petasan yang menimbulkan banyak korban jiwa. Sebagian korban jiwa adalah anak-anak di bawah umur. Ini membuat saya sedih. Mereka dipekerjakan oleh pabrik tersebut dengan gaji yang sangat minim. Dan menurut saya, hal itu tidak seharusnya dialami oleh mereka.
Teman saya memiliki kenalan yang pernah terlibat dalam bisnis penyaluran tenaga kerja Indonesia ke luar negeri. Banyak dari mereka yang menjadi korban kekerasan, mereka diintimidasi, bahkan dilecehkan secara seksual. Mereka mencoba untuk kabur dari kondisi itu, namun mereka tidak bisa.
Saat ini, perempuan masih menjadi korban utama dari praktek-praktek eksploitasi seksual. Seperti sebuah kasus yang pernah terjadi di lingkungan tempat tinggal saya. Teman saya menjadi korban eksploitasi seksual oleh ayah tirinya. Teman saya berusaha menolak, memberontak, tapi ia diancam dan diiming-imingi uang jajan tambahan. Kasus teman saya ini hanyalah salah satu dari sekian banyak kasus yang terjadi di sekitar kita. Saya sadar.
Tidak cukup hanya dengan mengetahui dan berdiam diri melihat kondisi yang seperti itu. Menghindari itu tidak cukup.
Saya harus melakukan sesuatu.
Beberapa bulan yang lalu saya mengikuti Students Opposing Slavery Summit di Washington DC, Amerika Serikat. Di sana saya bertemu dengan banyak pemuda yang ternyata juga peduli akan isu perbudakan modern. Saya merasa tidak sendirian. Dan saya merasa saat saya pulang ke Indonesia, saya harus membuat satu gerakan di mana kita bisa melawan perbudakan modern.
Saya bertemu dengan teman-teman yang memiliki kekhawatiran dan kepentingan yang sama seperti saya, yaitu Emancipate.
Yang kami lakukan di Emancipate Indonesia adalah melakukan kampanye, riset, pelatihan kapasitas, dan juga advokasi untuk melawan perbudakan modern. Kami berusaha untuk mencegah adanya generasi dengan perbudakan modern di masa depan.
Jika kita berbicara mengenai perbudakan modern, ini bukan hanya tentang saya, kamu,
Atau tentang dia, ini tentang kita semua.
Emancipate.
Ayo,
Kita lawan perbudakan modern.
akhiri perbudakan.
Video profile of our organization, and you can see in the video Mardianta is here. She's also our executive director in Emancipate Indonesia. And then continue to the presentation. I'm gonna talk about slavery footprint in tobacco industry supply chains. Before that, let me explain to you what slavery is from my and Emancipate's understanding. So it essentially refers to a situation where a person cannot refuse or leave because of threats, violence, or abuse of power. So there is a power relation happening in slavery-like practices. And according to the International Labor Organization for Global, they talk about slavery in a form of forced labor, forced marriage, and forced labor exploitation. The key word in that condition is forced. So to make it easier for me to understand, it's either be forced by a person or by a condition or a situation. Here is the overview of tobacco industry in Indonesia. Usually, tobacco like to say that they're giving like biggest revenue to Indonesia income, and they provide many jobs for Indonesian working in their industry or in the farming. But the reality behind tobacco industry this is the reality behind the tobacco supply chain in Indonesia. Many workers are underpaid. Here in the table are the data from the BPS. You can see the people that works in tobacco industry, they get like the lowest income compared to other people working in other industries such as clothing or food. They only get 1.1 million per month, which is like 36,000 rupiah per day. So that's very low, and the working condition is very dangerous, and usually they are daily laborers, so no healthcare, no safety equipment in their working environment. And most of them are usually women that don't have any other choices other than go to the industry, but then the businesses like exploit them and only pay them 36,000 per day for doing the jobs. What is linting tobacco? 1,000 tobacco, they only get paid like 9,000 rupiah for 1,000 tobacco, $1 for 1,000 tobacco pieces. And then next, okay, here are the pictures of where the workers in one of tobacco industry go on strike. But yeah, they demand higher payment for their works. And also the tobacco industry like to say that they provide jobs, and the tobacco control policy will make many workers in tobacco industry lost their job, but actually the tobacco industry don't really care about their workers, because the workers they got replaced by machine, because the industry so the data show from the 2005 to 2013, the tobacco production increased up to 47%. But the workers, although the production increased, the workers actually decreasing from 2006 to 2012. Think about it, how can a production increase but the workers decrease? It's because the tobacco industry fired the workers and changed them into machine, because machine don't need higher payment. Machine don't ask for anything, right? Like the workers will ask for healthcare, health insurance, but machine don't need that, and it's cheaper for the industry to use machine. One machine can replace 900 of workers. So it's actually very sad situation in this industry. But the farmers and also workers in tobacco industry usually became the shield for tobacco industry, like when the government trying to force tobacco control policy. But that's the reality in the field itself. And for the tobacco farming, farmers is usually became the tobacco industry defense. Like if the government trying to make a policy to control tobacco consumption, usually they'll say the farmers will lose their jobs and what happened to the farmer, etc. But the fact in tobacco farming, the production cost for the tobacco is very expensive. And what happened if the cost expensive, usually the farmer will try to cut the production cost by using cheap labor. And usually it comes from their children or their neighbor children in the village. So child labor is happening in tobacco farming. Human Rights Watch just released their report on child labor in tobacco industry. And usually the small farmer, they get debt, like they borrow, take loan from other people to do their plantation. And then after they harvest, the trading system in tobacco farming is not very fair because there's the middleman. The farmer can just sell the tobacco to the big company, but there's the middleman, penggula or reminder. And the farmer don't have the power to decide the grade or prices from their harvest. The penggula is the one that decide whether this tobacco is good, A grade or D or etc. They're the one that get it, that decide the price for the tobacco that the farmer had harvested. And then the farmer also facing health risk, which is green tobacco sickness. It is the risk when you like get in touch with green tobacco when they just harvested. The nicotine absorbed through their skin, and it can cause dizziness, nausea, and also breathing problem. And also the farmer in tobacco industry very dependent to weather condition. And like Mr. Febri just said, or what we know already, the climate change make our climate is not very predictable. Usually back in the day we can predict when it's going to rain or when it is going to be sunny or whatever. But right now we can't really know. Like we can have we can be in November and it's still not raining for a month because of climate change. And the tobacco is very dependent to the climate. They need to have a certain amount of rain, certain amount of temperature, and usually they get very nervous during close to the harvest time because even if they can keep their crops good throughout the year, but when the harvest, for example, tomorrow they're gonna harvest their tobacco, and then the night before the harvest, the rain comes, the tobacco will go bad, and then the price will get low. Even without that, the prices will be played by the penggula, and if it's even worse if the weather is not kind to the farmers. And also there's the increase in tobacco import. Again, the tobacco industry usually say they are protecting the farmer, but they the increase, the tobacco import is increasing very high right now. And because of that, it's cheaper for the company to buy, to use imported tobacco instead of buying from the local farmer. And usually what happens is that the tobacco from the local farmer, they don't get to the good price, or it's not even sell at all. So they got, again, merugi. What is that? Yeah. Yeah, this is the picture is the farmer go on strike to refuse imported tobacco. This is, to make it simple, you can see the tobacco industry supply chain here. So small farmer sells their tobacco to the local trader or the middleman or the penggula. And then the penggula decides what the price or what's the grade of the tobacco, and then they're the one that sells it to the bigger tobacco company. And the tobacco company distributes the tobacco nationally and globally to consumer. And from that cycle, in the farming, there's child labor happening. So the tobacco company make money with child labor. And then, next slide. Yeah, I have a video to show you about child labor in Indonesian tobacco farm from Human Rights Watch. smokers usually start at as young as 8 years old. 8 years old is like second grade in SD, yeah? And they're working in such condition, and they absorb nicotine and get like they get dizzy, and these guys start working in the tobacco farms since the age of 12, and he was like noisy and dizzy and has to be taken to the hospital and stay there for 4 days, I think. 4 days and 4 nights. Yeah.
Nicotine is a toxin, and children can absorb as much nicotine through their skin as if they were actually smoking.
Yeah. This is the cause, no, not the
Amirain Sabang. Terus badannya dua sendok atau 1 sendok. Ya aduk.
Children who farm tobacco are exposed to toxic pesticides and fertilizers. The long-term effects can include cancer, damage to the nervous system, and impacts on reproductive health.
Yeah, there's just the small, if you want to watch it more, it's on YouTube. You can just see it, but it's very true and very dangerous to the children that works in the tobacco industry. So here's the recommendations for this whole situation. Yeah, we can increase the product diversification. Like Mr. Febri just said about the biodiversity. Yeah, we can increase the product. So tobacco, not only for making cigarette, we can make other things from tobacco. We can make antiseptic, we can make biofuel, and other things. And then the second one gives assistance program for those who wants to switch to planting other crops. I have an example here. Maybe if you see it, why I have coffee at the table. It's actually Pak Sukuman right there in the picture. He is a former tobacco farmer, and he switched it to planting coffee and vegetable in the Daratan Tinggi Merapi. So in the Merapi mountain, he switched from planting tobacco, he switched to coffee. Because tobacco plantation is very expensive, like I explained earlier. It is very expensive, and they don't have many income from tobacco. So he decided to switch to coffee and vegetable instead, and then he got like multiple income from it. And he don't force other people to switch, but many look at him as an example, and then almost not almost from 4,000, I think, from 1,000 tobacco farmer in the Merapi, and then switch to coffee, and only 100 something that still plant tobacco. And it shows that it is possible to switch to other crops, and it's more beneficial to the farmer itself. And then we can also strengthen the farmers into institutions, so they have more power when dealing with the middlemen. So they're not get played like their prices after all of their hard work, and they just got played by the middlemen. So stronger institution for farmers also will help them like survive, or like give them more power in this industry. I think that's all my presentation. I hope we can discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the awesome insights. Now we're going to the last speaker, which is Mr. Marganta. The floor is yours.
Maybe before I begin, I would like to show you a video of FCTC.
Tahukah kamu, jumlah perokok di Indonesia sekitar 62 juta jiwa. Menjadi peringkat ketiga di dunia setelah Cina dan India. 70% perokok di Indonesia mulai merokok sebelum usia 19 tahun. Sehingga Indonesia terkenal di dunia sebagai baby smoker country karena banyak ditemukan perokok usia balita. Indonesia adalah satu-satunya negara di ASEAN yang masih membolehkan iklan, promosi, dan sponsor rokok di mana saja. Tahukah kamu akibat dari rokok? Rokok dapat mengakibatkan berbagai penyakit, yaitu jantung, stroke, kanker, bronkitis, dan lain-lain. Hingga kematian. Di tahun 2010, sekitar 200.000 kematian disebabkan oleh merokok. Atau 548 kematian per hari. 1 dari 5 remaja Indonesia usia 15-19 tahun sudah merokok. Selain itu, asap rokok dapat membahayakan kesehatan orang yang tidak merokok, terutama anak-anak. Lebih dari 140 juta penduduk Indonesia terpapar asap rokok orang lain di rumah, perkantoran, tempat umum, dan kendaraan umum. Anak-anak dari keluarga miskin mengalami putus sekolah dan gizi buruk. Karena pengeluaran untuk membeli rokok lebih besar dibandingkan untuk pendidikan dan makanan bergizi. Apa solusinya? Mendukung pemerintah Indonesia untuk menandatangani FCTC. Karena Indonesia adalah satu-satunya negara dari Asia yang belum tanda tangan. Jika Indonesia menandatangani FCTC, maka kita akan menikmati bonus demografi pada tahun 2020 hingga 2030. Bonus demografi adalah situasi di mana jumlah penduduk
Good morning, everyone. His Excellencies, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Ian from Youth Movement for FCTC, but also, as they mentioned before, I'm also part of Emancipate Indonesia. Very well, much indeed, but we share the same concern in tobacco control and how we see and approach the issue. So here, maybe I would like to talk on the issue of, so I also gave this presentation in Asian Pacific Conference on Tobacco and Health with the Ministry of Health and Ministry of National Development, and I believe that maybe this opportunity I can share again, but also with further approaches on the issue. So here you can see how history sees Indonesian youth. Well, we were very active in involving in achieving our independence in 1945, and we have in 1998 we took down the authoritarian government, and also in 2045 we will have the demographic bonus where the number of productive workforce is the highest in the history of a nation. But what will happen if all of them are addicted to cigarettes? What will happen if all of them are unhealthy and unable to contribute further to this nation's economy, etc.? Next. Yeah. So we see that's how history sees Indonesian youth, right? Very, contributing agent of changes. But how does the tobacco industry see Indonesian youth? They see us as targets. Sales as profits and pawns. We are numbers in their profit reports. We are dehumanized. We are their profits. So that's the only thing that they say, and it's been proven from the Big Tobacco's memo, internal memo in 1984. They say that younger adult smokers are the only source of replacement smokers, because once youth smoke in their early age, they will smoke for the rest of their lives. And since 1995 and 2013. The numbers of children who smoke has been increasing 12 times higher. So this is very staggering and such a problem in our sustainable development goals. Next. Yeah. And if you see the tobacco industry in 2010, this is 2010, and the newest data is even more. And they have recruited 3.96 million young people, new smokers, from the age of 10 until 14 years old. Or, I'm sorry, that's not million, so 10,869 new smokers every day on a daily basis. New customers, new quick bucks for the tobacco industry. And we see among ASEAN, we rank the highest in the number of smokers. 10% of Asian smokers are Asian, not ASEAN. Asian smokers are actually from Indonesia. And and only just in Jakarta, we are now in Jakarta, right? In Jakarta, 68% of male above the age of 13 and 9% of female above the age of 13 in Jakarta are smokers. That's only in Jakarta. And imagine in the rest of Indonesia. Above age of 13, I'm not even saying 18, it's 13. So the numbers of youth smokers here are very staggering, as you see. And it is not a surprise that we see in our national healthcare, we have been having this deficit, if you may have heard in the news, right? And it is because the cigarettes are cheap, but the health cost is very, very expensive. It's not like enter wind, it's not masuk angin. It's not only you put some, cream and then you got healed. It's cancer, right? It's diabetes, it's heart attack. Those are expensive diseases. But the cigarettes are very cheap. And it is intended to be like that. So then the profit margins will be higher, so that they get more profits. And children nowadays, if you go beyond here, go to the small kiosk and ask somebody who's young and ask them to buy cigarettes, they will let them buy it without any ID. And even you can buy it in sticks. In Malaysia, they have been protesting with these kiddie packs of 3 or 4 sticks. And they are very afraid that it will increase more younger smokers and more people to smoke. In Malaysia, in here, we sell it in sticks. That is in Jawa, only like 10 cents. So this is very staggering. How can we be, trapped in these lies of the tobacco industry? Okay, next. So lessons learned. I wouldn't want to, us to be very skeptical about this, because actually some youth are already doing something about these things. So I'm a part of youth movement for FCTC, which is facilitated by the Lentera Anak Foundation. So we fight the tobacco industry. We fight for tobacco control through youth participation. So I mentioned about David versus Goliath. If some of you know the story, Daud versus Galut. So what is the story then, right? The story is actually there is these small farmers and very weak, etc. So someone invaded their land, and then nobody else wants to fight the Goliath because he was so big. And then David said, "Okay, I'll do it." Right? Nobody else did. And Goliath was underestimating David, right? Goliath underestimated David, just like the tobacco industry underestimated youth. You are not agents of sustainable development goals. You're just prophets in my report. But actually, youth are more than victims or beneficiary. Youth are actually, meaningful agent of changes in here. For example, what we do in Youth Movement for FCTC Indonesia, I think one of the members is here as well. Bagja, you can raise your hand. Yeah, that's him. So what we do is we do monitorings of cigarette prices in 19 cities and show them to the stakeholders, the Minister of Finance, to everyone who is in power, to show them that actually it is that accessible. We compare it with the pocket money of children and show how cheap it is to get cigarettes here in this country. And the tobacco, we also monitor some tobacco ads in some cities. And our findings was we have so many tobacco ads, not only everywhere, but especially around schools. So the tobacco industry has been denying that they are not targeting youth. They are targeting youth. Some of us also go to school and we have these warungs, right? And what are the banners? Don't quit. Talk less to more, whatever it is. That jargons, right? I mean, they're getting us. And the more you see the brand, it's been proven by research, the more you see, you're attracted to it, right? And it's not only in the warungs. If you want to watch a superhero movie in Avengers that Mr. Jocko mentioned, right? What is the advertisement before the movie? The coolest advertisement ever with great graphics that actually can be better used for Indonesians, tourism. It's tobacco. Right? You want to go to a concert, it's tobacco. You want to get a scholarship, it's tobacco. You want to be an athlete, it's tobacco. Wow, they're everywhere. I mean, when I heard Her Excellency mentioned in Hungary, they cannot mention their names. In here, oh, they have no shame. They have a foundation themselves. Even in a global scale, they have smoke-free world. They say like, okay, we acknowledge smoking is dangerous. That's why we're helping you to stop smoking. Why don't you just stop selling it? Right? You're like, okay, I'm doing bad things, but I'm also a good guy. Are you Jekyll and Hyde? Come on. So this is the problem we're facing now. And also, we also encourage children in school to take down those banners and warnings of cigarette ads, right? And we put them in front of the state palace, and it was full. And everybody was like, oh my God, they are really targeting kids. So Goliath underestimated David, but we can do so much more than photo ops, you know. We do monitorings, we do research, and we show them. And it's that staggering that youth actually has to involve in this issue here. Because we are really asking for help. Like, please protect us. Okay, we'll do it ourselves. Like Thanos said, I'll do it myself. That's what he's doing. And David is a very tactical fighter. You know what? Goliath said to David, come with me, David. You're just this little weak, shepherd. And what did David do? He didn't come towards Goliath, right? He pulled out secret weapon and then shot Goliath from distance. And Goliath's like, oh, my eye, and then pull the sword and, kill Goliath. So that's what you're going to do. Youth learn fast and develop creatively effective methods, out-of-the-box methods, approaches in tobacco control, in advancing sustainable development goals. And we expose their methods, or the industry's methods. For instance, we have this FCTC warrior shadow puppets. So there's this Game of Thrones-like characters, 6 of them, 3 women and 3 men. And we play them in 25 cities. Now it's still going. It's going to be coming back to Jakarta later on. And then in this shadow puppets is actually representing the points of FCTC that we support. Why we support FCTC? Because it consists of banning of tobacco advertisement, promotion, and sponsorships. It supports diversification of tobacco control of tobacco products. It also regulates cigarette sales that it cannot be sold by youth. It also encourages us to increase the cigarette excise tax, etc. And this FCTC warrior actually represented those values, and we play them in a fairy tale way in front of stakeholders, in front of mayors, in front of the presidential staff, in front of ministers even. And that's how we get their support publicly, right? So these are very out-of-the-box methods. We never thought about this. Why do you use wayang? Why do you use shadow puppets? Well, eventually it works. Because the year before we met with the presidential staff, and she from Deputy 5, Mrs. Jalaswari. First she was a bit of hesitant, but a year after when we show the shadow puppet, and then say, okay, I'm finally going to acknowledge and support you publicly. It takes time, really. And do people underestimate us? Yeah. But it works. So whatever works, works. And one of the things is, Bagja here was also involved, is we have the youth reformers in 17 cities. They gathered 11,022 letters saying to the president, please protect us from cigarettes, please sign FCTC, so that you show a commitment to the world that you're actually trying to protect the young. Those are handwritten letters from kids saying, like, some of them saying, like, my dad cannot stop smoking, but I love him, what can I do? Those insecurities. We all have someone that we cannot rescue, right? Like, oh my God, it's so hard. Even I couldn't rescue my own grandfather, and he died of stroke because of smoking. And that's one of the reasons why I started this movement. It's my Quentin Tarantino movie. It's a personal vengeance for me, to the tobacco industry, because I know a lot of people are facing the same loss like me. So, with that letters, what happened? Eventually the letters, the words got through to the state palace. And not long after that, in 2016, President Jokowi was the first president in Indonesia to hold a limited cabinet meeting with some of his ministers to talk about FCTC. The output, okay, he didn't sign it until now. But at least he talks about it. And the words got out. And from his statements, he actually supports tobacco control. He doesn't want young people to smoke. He doesn't want, farmers and laborers to depend on this exploitative industry, right? But even the president couldn't sign directly. They are that powerful, this Goliath. And we need all the help we can get. And that's how youth came in here. Next. And Goliath is big, but David's strength is element of surprise that was mentioned before. Yeah, we do our events in front of stakeholders, right? In front of mayors, etc. And then David volunteered himself but nobody wanted to. Like, youth put aside politics for sincere volunteerism. Like, it's a way also for us to unite in diversity. We don't care what your religion is, we don't care what your race is, but as long as you are on the same page with us, you're concerned about the tobacco, etc., we support you. We are in the same page. So it's a way for us to unite the young people. We have 45 young leaders in 31 cities, with representing 102 communities, 3,000 students. So these are a very huge number, and we are expecting to see more growth because this issue is actually very multifaceted. If you're talking also about climate, 1.8 billion of cigarette waste, toxic waste, are being distributed annually. It's been said by the WHO that cigarettes are one of the most hazardous toxic waste around. So, and that also affects climate in a way. If you see some videos of fishes, right? Of fishes, in the sea, and when we open them, there are not only straws, plastic, but also cigarette butts. If you see, when we just had our Asian Games, right? And we see those Japanese tourists are picking up cigarette butts, and as an Indonesian now, I'm so ashamed of that. Like, come on. The industry is not responsible, but sometimes also smokers. But the way we see the issue is the smokers are victims, actually. The one who does the advertisement, they have no options, right? It's their job. But who demands it, right? Our enemy is only one that we rally upon, is the industry. So that's why we're trying to promote. And that's why youth from every sector, you're concerned environment, climate change, etc. You can also support our cause because it is everybody's issue. That's our point. Next. Yeah. Oh, this is the overview of our movement in many cities. Yeah, we haven't got into the eastern part of Indonesia yet, but we will be soon, probably. And next. Yeah. So the conclusion is youth groups can mobilize a massive movement. And youth are creative, active in social media, and now we have identity politics everywhere, but in this way, we can rally on something that actually we fight together for. Indonesia still is the only country in Asia that hasn't signed FCTC. We are not even the number one producer in the world. And their lives, tobacco, they depend on the farmers. Eventually, the workforce, they are in tobacco industry is only ranked on the 48th of 66 industries in Indonesia. And they only contributed less than 1% of workforce in Indonesia since 1970s. But what you heard is not like that, right? What you heard in the media is not like that. So actually, when some people are talking fake news, nowadays, no. They have been doing it since 1954, when they denied it. It's conclusive to health, etc. They are, the industry that we should really watch upon for, through scholarships and everywhere. So here in Youth Movement for FCTC, I would like to enlighten you, especially young people, don't buy their lies. Because as the hashtag goes, they lie and we die. So don't take their lives, don't buy their lives. Next. Yeah, so by meaningful youth participation, involving youth in tobacco control, we can have better development, better health, and better future. That's for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the beautiful and comprehensive explanation from Mr. Magenta. Well, I guess curiosity are actually now, we are now open for questions, but I think before we open for the audience, we from the moderator have several questions, maybe. Maybe to Mr. Muammar first. How the people, or especially youth, can actually contribute to tackling the climate change problems in regard to its relation with tobacco industry? Is it too big for us to handle these kinds of issues?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very interesting question. Yeah? Is it too big, too small, or just moderate? Yeah. But I think as youth, we have to start from the facts, not from the hopes or the lies. So I'll give you one example. In Tanzania, not sure it is in Indonesia because we have no data. In Tanzania, in several districts, the major driver of the deforestation is tobacco sectors. Yeah? You might heard Indonesia is a palm oil sector, but why? Because we have no data. So all the young people in here, they should do a lot of studies. Yeah, a lot of study in terms of land use and land use change. Tobacco is the major driver for deforestation. Because if it is yes, is tobacco is one of deforestation. If it is yes, then you can find a clear linkage towards climate change. So I highly encourage young people, especially you all here, the fellow speakers in here. When we talk about climate change and tobacco, we have to start from the firm and clear-cut information. Yeah? I'm sure there is, because in Tanzania this is the case. In one district, in one particular district, for instance, about 4,000 hectares was completely grazed to plant for tobaccos. But you know what is very interesting, that 11% of that land that has been converted, about 11% is used for the curing only for the tobaccos. Only for the curing process of the tobacco itself. So if we put all these facts together, again I'm just theoretically putting it into for our food for thought. Indonesia is one of the largest smoking countries. Yes. For sure those tobacco came from somewhere. Came from the land. And where the land come from? It's from the forest. I'm sure it is. Yeah. You also said that the number of workers is going down, but the productivity is increasing, probably through mechanization. But with the increase of the productivity, two questions: is it intensification or extensification? Are they increasing their yields through more productive methods, or they expand their plantations? So this is a very basic fundamental question that we need to answer. And you young people, I think in here, to do more research, find the data, observe, analyze the pattern of the land use change, talk to the farmers. How do they cope with the change of the climatic pattern? Are they expanding? Are they expanding their areas? Are they encroaching the forest? So I would highly encourage that before we tackle these issues, we go into more the spatial innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. February. Now we move to the second speaker because we still have questions from our audience. I actually concerned in slavery as well. So I write one question here for Amelia. How do you see Indonesian tobacco industry in relations with the modern slavery footprints? Among all the tobacco industry in the world, is it our country's tobacco industry's worse or better, or is there any solutions from Emancipate as well? Thank you.
So, actually, from after the Human Rights Watch released their reports on child labor in tobacco industry, Human Rights Watch wrote a letter to the 6 tobacco company in Indonesia, to the Sampurna, the Garam, Jarum, etc. Human Rights Watch wrote a letter about this and asked them, do you know that child labor is in your supply chain? And Indonesian-owned company did not respond. Yeah, they did not respond to the letter at all. They don't even want to meet with the Human Rights Watch. The foreign-owned company, though, they replied and they say they are committed to protect the children from working in the tobacco farm in their country. In their country, they're very committed to not let the children work in tobacco factory in their country because the law is very strict. Therefore, they go to our country. Yeah, and because it's also hard because the condition of socio-economic condition in Indonesia is very different than those in Western country, right? Here it is common for children to help their parents in the farm, but it's not okay for children age of 8 to be working in tobacco farming because it's very dangerous condition. But to answer your question, is it worse or better among other tobacco industry? I think for now Indonesia is worse in terms of their slavery footprint in the tobacco industry because they didn't do anything. They don't even answer a question. They don't want to meet. They don't want to explain. I don't think they have explanation other than. So yeah, if that answers the question.
Okay, thanks, Lotomel. Let's move to Marganta.
Yeah, I think this is one fundamental question for Mr. Marganta. What do you think about the youth roles in breaking the hegemon power of the tobacco industry towards their jobs in decreasing the people's quality of life? How to fight the hegemon power,
This is a very philosophical, existential question, but it is an important one. So how do we fight back this hegemonic power? It's been around for years. So we see that everyone has a role. When you have a choice, to accept their scholarship, to go to their concerts, and even to use their products, you realize you have a choice. What are the realities behind it? How are the workers, as we mentioned, and farmers, and how it affects the climate as well. Like for instance, like the fact that tobacco farming actually increases more 5% deforestation globally. And it's 10% more aggressive than other crops if we're talking about climate. If we're talking about health, well, we have, our healthcare, they have deficit. I mean, there are so many aspects to it, and don't just see it from one side. We gotta see it from a helicopter view. And so we can see how it works, how their power works, how they make us, that we feel that we owe them, that their existence is needed, even though their existence is the very reason why our existence is deteriorating actually. So we just have to, have a wake-up call, do something, and it's not only about behavioral issue. It's not only about smoking is dangerous. You do not only blame the customers, but who supplies it, who benefits from it? It's the industry. So how we rally point is like we are not considering as bad people. I mean, some of them are responsible. Many of them are responsible. Okay, with smoke-free zone sometimes inside of a mall in Indonesia. Only in Indonesia you see a air-conditioned room with people smoking. It's a whole mall people smoking. Yes. So. But then, who creates that in the first place? Who makes it accessible? Who makes it cheap? Who advertises everywhere? It's the industry. So that's how we approach the issue and how we try to denormalize the industry by exposing their tactics, exposing their lies, and that we can fight them back. So maybe that's somehow.
Okay, thank you, Marganta. Can I talk about the long-term goal the FCTC want to achieve?
Oh, yeah. Of course, as you know our name, Youth Movement for FCTC. So we support Indonesia to sign Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. So that we have a firm stance. We show the international world that we have commitments to protect our young generation from cigarettes. That we do not want to depend on tobacco as an earning. Like for instance, many people see us, excise tax is actually an earning, and they've given a word for it, for big tobacco. It's not an earning if you see in our law. It states that it is an instrument of control. That something is dangerous and needs to be controlled. It's not an earning, so we cannot depend on it. So our closest target is also to support the government to make cigarettes expensive. Rokok harus mahal. And that is the thing. Now we're campaigning also in the tobacco control network in all over Indonesia. By making it inaccessible, by making it expensive, we can reduce smokers. In low middle income countries, we have 2%, 2.1% increase of smokers every year. but in developed countries actually it's decreasing. So, and most of the smokers in low and middle income countries actually come from lower and middle income populations as well. There is a research in Indonesia that they spend, the low earning people, they spend, maybe they have like $50 for a month or less. They spend most on rice. Second, they spend most on cigarettes. So they prefer to buy cigarettes rather than fruits, veggies, even though we have it everywhere here, we take it for granted, and anything else, and even education, etc. So even there is a story of a farmer in Wonosobo. He said like he spends like 200 something thousand of Indonesian rupiah, so like $20 for a month for cigarettes. But then he feels like burden when he has to pay like less than $1, 7,000 rupiah for school for his kid. So this is the cognitive dissonance that we try to fight. So by supporting the DTC and to denormalize the industry, and also to support the cigarettes to be pricey, to be expensive, we believe that we can advance further in tobacco control and sustainable development goals. That's our closest target.
Thank you very much. Now we are open for the first session of the questions from the audience. We're going to pick 3 first questions. For those who wish to ask, just raise your hand. The gentleman here. Should I stand up or? It's okay if you want to stand up. Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Kevin Hananta, and on my previous Asia Model United Nations in South Korea, modern slavery and also these tobacco issues become the main concern that we make in draft. And we really realize that many youth passed away every day because of these tobacco issues. And then prevention, protection, and also restrictions have been doing in the aspects of production, distribution, and also consumption by many countries to overcome these issues. Yet, the activity rate of youth using cigarettes is still always getting slumped until now. And the question is, what are actually the main root causes until our youth or other perpetrators of the tobacco issues still able to find the loopholes to smoke instead of eating candies? Thank you so much. 2 more questions.
Thank you for your time. I'm Junita. This question especially for Amel. After we watched the video, the second video, I think the children in there is not as officially as a labor. They are just helping the parents, and as we know that helping parents is our culture, right? So, what your opinion? Is it called child labor or just slavery? Thank you.
Next. I think we take this maybe.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mira, and so concerning the young people lifestyle nowadays, we also find them do shisha as an alternative, as an alternative of smoke, as an alternative of smoking, right? Do you find this as another significant factor to handle this problem of tobacco problem? Like to change the cigarette consumption to shisha because they claim that they are more eco-friendly. Since there is less tobacco inside and more dangerous chemical. Or is it just not the solution at all? At least I think if it really is the less tobacco inside, at least we could pass the problem over the slavery, the industrial slavery, and also the deforestation. Yeah. So that's my question. Maybe it will be relevant to address this question to Mr. Mardianta. But it will be also interesting to hear the Mr. Amar and Miss Amelia opinion over this young people lifestyle nowadays other than tobacco or cigarette. Thank you.
Again, I think we're going to give the chance.
So before we answer all the questions, because our ambassador. Okay. All right. So let's move to that answer.
So here, Mr. Kevin, you asked about the root causes of this. So the loopholes, as it seems, the answer is all in FCTC. So FCTC mentioned that we should ban tobacco advertisement, promotion, and sponsorships, and we still let them do it here. We are the last Marlboro country. I mean, they can advertise freely everywhere. That's how they get people to smoke, to attract them to smoke. The tobacco ad promotion sponsorship is loose. Regulation is very loose here, and the cigarettes are very cheap. It's very easy to get, accessibility, and we don't need an ID for it, and others as well. So it is actually based on regulation. And what we do is our stance we're not fighting the government. We are supporting the government. We care about the nation. We want to advance the sustainable development goals. We want to be part of the solution. That's why we support strict tobacco control measures, about the smoke-free zones as well. Some people also mistreat it, like if you have a smoke-free zones, no smoking zone, and then you have the smoking area. That's oxymoron, right? It's like you're encouraging people, okay, you cannot smoke here, but you can smoke here. That's not how you do it. That's not, I suppose in Europe, most of the countries are not like that. So this is the loophole is in regulation, and what we aim to do is to support those regulations to be strict, especially amongst children. They are the ones who got the most victims in this. So we are supporting regulation, supporting the government. So those are the root causes, and also the tobacco industry interference is cannot be denied. How they're lobby, big lobby, etc. And they're number 1 and 2 richest people in Indonesia. Just imagine that. And thank you very much everyone here for being brave enough and speaking up. You are on the right side of history. 200, 300 years from now, we will look back to this day and say that why were we, we were so stupid, like they lied on us and we did nothing. No, we did. There are some young people gathering in Hungary and Amnesty, and they're speaking out the truth. So thank you very much for taking part in this, because we're fighting giants and we need all the help we can. And I think the second question was about the shisha. And even my friends said like it's halal. I don't know what's the relation of it. It's because from Middle Eastern, I don't know. But from what I read, it's even more dangerous. Many times more dangerous than tobacco. As you mentioned before, less tobacco and more dangerous chemical products. Like, okay, that is why it's dangerous. And also with vape as well, right? With e-cigarettes. They're promoting e-costs also, to speak of those e-cigarettes. They're now happening. This is smokeless. This is, sustainable. You just have to recharge it. We have so many flavors. You have strawberry, you have rujak, whatever. Nasi uduk, I don't care. That's just a trade of addiction to another, right? So here's the simple logic. Our body was made, only to inhale oxygen. That's it. That's how God made us. Ever believe it? But then, what happens was, right? We put other things and we smoke it, Of course, that's dangerous. That's the simple logic. I asked my doctors, my friends who are doctors. They always say the same thing. You were built, assembled as a human, only to inhale oxygen. When you inhale something else, of course, that's dangerous. Especially when for real, it's dangerous. So it's not recommended. It's not halal, I suppose. Not even a cigarette would be. Okay.
I'm gonna answer question from Junita about child labor. So like I mentioned earlier, it is very common in Indonesia to help our parents in the farm. According to ILO convention, maybe I was also a victim of child labor back in the day when I was little. Because in Aceh, I used to help my parents work. But is it child labor? I don't think so, because there's certain condition that consider child labor. First, it's not child labor in ILO convention if you're above 14 years old and you only work 4 hours a day and get paid equally with the adult, and also working in not dangerous condition. But if we see in the video or in the tobacco farming, the children work there from the age of 8, and even if they work less than 4 hours a day, it's still they're still working in the dangerous condition. And some of them even skip school during harvest time. They skip school to help harvesting in the field, in the farm. And that means their rights is taken. Children have right to go to school, to play, to get education, but when they're working in the tobacco farming, they can't go to school. Their parents encourage them to skip school for a couple of days to help farming and to help harvest the tobacco. And that means looking at those signs, working in tobacco farming is absolutely child labor. But if you see jaga toko, say, watch your parents shopkeeper, become your shopkeeper in your parents' shop. It's okay, it's not child labor. You can do it while doing your homework, for example. Or washing the dishes at home. Is it child labor? Of course not. It's helping our parents, right? Or usually when I was little, I was in 4th grade, I think. I was under 14, but I helped my parents sell tempe goreng. But it's only an hour a day. It's not even an hour. Less than an hour, it's all gone because we love tempe goreng, right? So it's all gone and it's not dangerous. I mean, I just sit in front of my house and people buy. Is it child labor? It's not child labor if that's the condition. But working in tobacco farming is they work. The children say they work during the day when it's hot outside, and they water the plant. They have to go to the well to get water, and then they water each one by one of the tobacco plant, and then they get dizzy. The kids say mata saya berkunang-kunang and dizzy, and that's not the condition a children should live in. Right? Children should be able to play, should be able to go to school without having to skip school to help their parents harvesting. They can help harvest, of course, but after the school. But usually what happens in tobacco farming is not like that. And it's also because, again, the production cost of the tobacco plantation is very expensive, and the farmer, this small farmer, needs every help they need. So they don't have any other choice, so they use their children. Usually it's happening like that in the villages. Today we help this Mr.'s farm, the next day we help others farm. That's what happened in the village. Semangat gotong royong, right? So each kid's helping not their parents, but their neighbors, for example. It's happening in Indonesia. So yeah, of course we would like to eliminate that in Indonesia, but it takes time, and it takes all of us, not only the farmers, but also the government and also the businesses, to make sure that no child labor is in their supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's move to the third question.
Shisha. It's very hard for me to comment on this. But I think, well, it's substance, and when you abuse substance, you develop addictions. So I think we human beings are very prone to what putting something in our bodies to stimulate ourselves. This overstimulation is. I completely disagree with overstimulation because it's really disturbs the centers of your beings. Yeah. So probably there's a lot. We need to look at it from the scientific point of view. But I saw a lot of people are very much enjoyed the shisha. But one thing I can say about shisha is that when you overdo that, then you are very prone to have a pulmonary. You are very prone to have pulmonary diseases. Yeah? We call it in Indonesia paru-paru basah. Yeah? So this is when you put a certain, it's evaporated waters. Yeah, and you suck that in excessively, then you might have a pulmonary diseases. Yeah, like pneumonia, for instance. Yeah. But before that, I would like to touch as well on the issues a bit on the child labor. Yeah, because in the palm oil sector, there is to ascertain its sustainability, there is one prominent principle. We call it NDPE, which is no deforestation, no peat, because peat stores a lot of carbon. And then the last one is no exploitations, meaning no child labor, no underpaid workers, better access for education, better access for health services, and so on. So, as I said earlier, this issue is not only happening on tobacco industry; it happens on all sectors as well. So, we need to have a silver lining out of this. That exploitation is there, unequal treatment is there, deforestation is there. Yeah? I don't know whether tobacco is grown in peatland. Probably they do, but I haven't seen it in my 20 years of career. But again, whether it's deforestation or peat and exploitation, that are the main core elements that we young people around the world, I think, need to work consistently to ensure that these three principles are upheld. No deforestation, no peat exploitation, and finally, no exploitation as well towards human rights principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all the great speakers. Before we move to the second sessions, due to the important thing to do, our ambassador need to leave. So before she leave, we want to give a presentation. So I would love to call our president, World Married Indonesia, Daniel, here. So on behalf of World Married Indonesia, we would love to say thank you so much for Her Excellency for supporting us. Here's a presentation from us for you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you for everyone, for World Married and all the speakers, and it was awesome to be here, and I'm so really sorry that I need to leave, but please stay along as you have all the questions. Make sure that every question is answered and have fun, and I hope we will have some more events like this because it was really interesting. Thanks again for everyone, and I'm really sorry, but I need to rush away, but I would love to stay. Thanks again.
Thank you, Her Excellency Ambassador. We're going to resume the sessions. We're open for 3 more questions. For those who have questions, just raise your hand. And don't forget to state your name and your affiliation if you pay.
Good morning. My name is Ayi.
you. I want to make a question for Magenta or others. I think one of the reason Indonesia not sign FCTC is because BPJS have found from tobacco industry, especially tobacco takes 75% from cukai rokok. And then, what do you think about this situation? And then, any recommendation from FCTC to solve this problem? Thank you.
Thank you. Two more questions. Any other questions? If not, there is. Oh, don't forget to state your name.
Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for sharing your thought for all the speaker. My name is Eva from Campaign. The really on tobacco industry are quite complex and it's like multiplier effect for the life of others. I was born in city that producing cigarettes, by the way. And when I was kid, when I was going home with public transportation together with the labor, they expressed the